I saw him that night in our garage, hands covered in dirt, burying something I was never meant to see. My brother-in-law, Mark, locked eyes with me and whispered, "Please, Rachel, for your sister's sake." I nodded, but that one decision destroyed everything I loved. My name is Rachel Bennett. I'm a 32-year-old veterinary technician, and I thought protecting family meant keeping their secrets. I was so wrong. The midnight discovery. The emergency call came at 11:30. Mrs. Henderson's cat had eaten something toxic, and she was panicking on the phone. I grabbed my keys and rushed to the clinic, my mind focused on saving that little orange tabby. By the time I stabilized the cat and cleaned up, it was past 1 a.m. I drove home exhausted, my scrubs smelling like antiseptic and fur. Our driveway was dark except for one thing. The garage light was on. That was strange. Emily and Mark lived in the main house, but we shared the garage. I parked and sat there for a moment, staring at that yellow glow spilling from under the door. Maybe Mark was looking for something. Maybe he couldn't sleep. I opened my car door quietly and walked toward the garage. My hand touched the cold metal handle, and I pulled it open slowly. The hinges creaked, and that's when I saw him. Mark was on his knees in the far corner, his hands black with dirt. A shovel lay beside him, and he was digging frantically into the concrete floor. No, not the floor. Someone had broken through it. There was a hole, maybe 2 feet deep already. Beside him on the ground was something wrapped in black plastic, tied with rope. The bundle was about the size of a large duffel bag. "Mark?" My voice came out as a whisper. He jerked his head up, and his face went completely white. Dirt was smeared across his forehead, and his eyes were wild with panic. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. Then a smell hit me, something earthy and wrong, like rotting meat mixed with chemicals. My stomach turned. "What are you doing?" Mark stood up fast, almost tripping over the shovel. "Rachel! God, Rachel, you weren't supposed to be here." "What is that?" I pointed at the black plastic bundle, my hand shaking. "It's not what you think." He stepped toward me, his hands held out like he was approaching a frightened animal. Funny, since that was supposed to be my job. "Please, just listen to me." "What's in there, Mark?" "I can't tell you, but I swear, Rachel. I swear on everything, it's not what it looks like." His voice cracked. "Please, for your sister's sake, for Emily, don't ask questions. Just forget you saw this." I should have run. I should have called the police right then. But Mark was family. He'd been married to my sister for 5 years. He'd helped me move into my apartment. He'd loaned me money when my car broke down. This was Mark, kind, funny Mark who made Emily laugh. "Did you hurt someone?" I asked. No, Rachel, I would never." He ran his hands through his hair, leaving streaks of dirt. "This is complicated. I'm trying to protect our family, all of us. But if anyone finds out, if anyone knows about this, everything falls apart. Emily loses everything. You understand?" I didn't understand, but I looked at his desperate face, and I thought about my sister, Emily, who'd been so happy lately. Emily, who was planning their anniversary trip to Hawaii. Emily, who deserved better than to have her life destroyed. "Please," Mark whispered. "For Emily, just keep this between us." I closed my eyes. Every instinct in my body screamed danger, but when I opened them again, I heard myself say, "Okay, I won't tell anyone." The relief on his face should have made me feel good. Instead, it made me feel sick. Mark grabbed my hand and squeezed it. "Thank you. You're saving us, Rachel. You're saving this family." I pulled my hand away and walked back to my car. Behind me, I heard the scrape of the shovel starting again. I sat in my car for a long time before I could make myself drive the 100 feet to my apartment above the garage. That night, I didn't sleep at all. The weight of silence morning came too soon. I'd spent the whole night staring at my ceiling, replaying what I'd seen. The black plastic, the hole, the smell, Mark's panicked face. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that bundle on the garage floor. At 7, my phone buzzed. It was Emily. "Breakfast at the house. Made your favorite pancakes." I wanted to say no. I wanted to stay in bed and pretend last night never happened. But saying no would seem suspicious. I texted back, "Be there in 10. I showered and dressed slowly, trying to wash away the feeling of dread. When I walked into Emily's kitchen, she was humming and flipping pancakes. Mark sat at the table, reading something on his tablet, looking completely normal, like he hadn't been burying something horrible just hours ago. "Rachel!" Emily hugged me tight. "You look tired?" Late night at the clinic? Yeah. Emergency call. I sat down across from Mark, my hands clenched in my lap. Mark looked up and smiled at me. It was his regular smile, warm and friendly. Thanks again for everything you do, Rachel. Those animals are lucky to have you. My stomach twisted. Was he thanking me for my job or for keeping his secret? Emily set a plate of pancakes in front of me, drowning them in syrup just how I liked. So, Mark and I were thinking about our anniversary trip. We want to do a helicopter tour of the island. Doesn't that sound amazing? Sounds great, I said, pushing a piece of pancake around my plate. Are you okay? Emily sat down next to me, her eyebrows pulled together with concern. You're barely eating. Just tired. I forced myself to take a bite. It tasted like cardboard. Mark caught my eye across the table. He gave me that smile again, grateful this time, like we shared a secret, like I'd done something good. My skin crawled. Well, you should go home and rest after this, Emily said, rubbing my shoulder. You work too hard. If only she knew. If only I could tell her that her husband was burying something in their garage at 1 a.m. But I'd made a promise. For her sake, I'd said, for the family. After breakfast, I escaped back to my apartment. At work that afternoon, I couldn't concentrate. Dr. Patterson had to call my name 3 times before I heard him. Rachel, the Johnson's dog needs his vaccines. Sorry, yes, I'll get them. In the supply room, my hands shook as I prepared the syringes. I kept seeing that black plastic. What was in there? Money? Drugs? Something worse? The smell came back to me. That rotting chemical smell. Everything okay at home? Dr. Patterson appeared in the doorway, his kind eyes concerned. Yes, everything's fine. The lie came out smooth and easy. You sure? You seem distracted today. Just didn't sleep well. I'm fine, really. But I wasn't fine. The secret felt like poison in my blood, spreading through every part of me. I'd lied to protect my sister, but now I was lying to everyone. At the end of my shift, I drove home and saw Mark's car in the driveway. The garage door was closed. Whatever he'd been burying was now hidden under concrete and dirt, hidden like my promise to stay silent. I went upstairs to my apartment and locked the door, wishing I could lock away the memory just as easily. Emily's strange behavior 3 days passed. I avoided the garage and tried to avoid Mark, but Emily started texting me constantly, and I couldn't ignore my sister forever. On Thursday, she showed up at my apartment door with red eyes and a bottle of wine. Can we talk? Her voice was small and broken. Of course. Come in. I stepped aside, my heart pounding. Did she know something? Emily collapsed on my couch and opened the wine, drinking straight from the bottle before passing it to me. I think something's wrong with Mark. I almost dropped the bottle. What do you mean? He's been acting weird, distant. He keeps his phone locked now, and he jumps every time I walk into a room. She wiped her eyes. Rachel, have you noticed anything strange? You live right above the garage. Have you seen him doing anything unusual? The question hit me like a punch. I saw him every single night in my mind, digging that hole, hiding that bundle. No, I lied. Why? What's going on? Emily pulled out her phone and showed me a text thread. The messages were deleted, but I could see the timestamp. Look, he got a text at 2 a.m. last week. When I asked him about it, he said it was work, but he deleted it right in front of me. His hands were shaking, Rachel. That was the night I'd found him in the garage. Maybe it really was work, I said weakly. At 2 a.m? He's an accountant, not a doctor. Emily's voice rose. And that's not all. Money's been disappearing from our savings. Small amounts, but it adds up. When I asked him, he got defensive and said I was being paranoid. I wanted to tell her everything. The words were right there, burning in my throat, but then I remembered Mark's face. You're saving this family, that's Rachel. And his threat was implied even if he hadn't said it. If Emily knew, her perfect life would shatter. Have you tried just asking him directly? I said instead. Of course I have. He says nothing's wrong. He says I'm imagining things. Emily broke down crying, and I pulled her into a hug. She sobbed against my shoulder, while guilt ate me alive. Over the next few days, Emily's questions got more specific. She asked if I'd seen Mark late at night. She asked if he'd mentioned any problems at work. She asked if I thought he might be having an affair. Each lie I told made the distance between us grow. I was supposed to be her sister, her best friend. Instead, I was protecting the man who was hurting her. On Saturday, Emily came over again. This time she wasn't crying. She looked determined and scared. "I think Mark is hiding something terrible from me," she said. "I can feel it, Rachel. Something's really wrong. And I think you know what it is." My blood went cold. "What?" "No, I don't. You've been acting strange too, ever since last week. You won't look me in the eye. You avoid coming to the house." Emily grabbed my hands. "Please, if you know something, tell me. I'm your sister. We don't keep secrets." But I was keeping a secret. A big one. And I couldn't tell her without destroying everything. I pulled my hands away. "There's nothing to tell, Em. I'm just tired from work." She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the trust in her eyes start to crack. "Okay," she finally said. "If you say so." After she left, I sat on my couch and cried. I'd chosen Mark's secret over my sister's trust, and I didn't know how to undo it. The confrontation, I wasn't ready for Monday evening. Someone knocked on my door. Hard, urgent. I looked through the peephole and saw Mark standing there, his face tight with anger. My whole body went cold. I opened the door a crack. "What do you want?" "We need to talk. Now." He pushed past me into my apartment before I could stop him. "Mark, you can't just..." "Shut the door, Rachel." His voice was different. Cold. This wasn't the friendly brother-in-law I knew. The mask had finally dropped. I closed the door with shaking hands. "What's going on?" "Emily is asking questions. Too many questions. She thinks I'm hiding something, and she's right." Mark paced my small living room like a caged animal. "You need to help me fix this." "Fix what?" "Mark, I haven't said anything. That's not enough." He spun around to face me. "I need you to actively convince her that nothing's wrong. Tell her you've talked to me. Tell her everything's fine with us. Tell her she's being paranoid." "I can't do that. She's my sister. And she's my wife. If she keeps digging, everything falls apart. For all of us." Mark stepped closer, and I backed up until I hit the wall. "I need you to understand something, Rachel. That night in the garage, I have evidence that you were there. Evidence that shows you helping me." "What? That's not true. I never..." He pulled out his phone and turned it toward me. My blood froze. There on his screen were photos of me in the garage, but they'd been edited somehow. It looked like I was holding the shovel, like I was the one digging, like I was helping him move that black plastic bundle. "You did this," I whispered. "You set me up. I did what I had to do. Insurance, Rachel, in case you ever decided to grow a conscience." Mark's smile was cruel. "So here's how this works. You convince Emily that everything's fine. You tell her she's being crazy. You make her stop asking questions. Or these photos go to the police." "The police? Mark, what did you do? What's in that garage?" "It doesn't matter what I did. What matters is that if I go down, you go down with me. These photos prove you were involved. And think about what that would do to Emily. Her sister and her husband, both criminals, both liars. It would destroy her." My legs felt weak. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor. "You're insane." "No, I'm careful." Mark crouched down in front of me. "Emily trusts you more than anyone. One word from you, and she'll stop digging. That's all I need. Just get her to back off, and we can all go back to normal." "Nothing about this is normal." "Maybe not, but it's the only way we all survive." Mark stood up and walked to the door. "You have until Friday to convince her. After that, I can't guarantee what happens." He left, and I sat there on my floor for an hour, unable to move. The photos on his phone played over and over in my mind. They looked real. Any cop would believe them. And Mark was right about one thing. If those photos came out, Emily would never trust me again. She'd think I'd betrayed her from the start. I was trapped. Completely, utterly trapped. That night, I barely slept again. But this time, it wasn't guilt keeping me awake. It was fear. Fear of Mark. Fear of what he'd done, and fear of what he'd do next if I didn't obey. The woman who came looking on Wednesday afternoon, someone knocked on my door. When I opened it, a woman in a dark suit stood there with a badge in her hand. "Rachel Bennett? I'm Detective Maria Santos. I'd like to ask you a few questions if you have a moment." My heart stopped. This was it. Mark had turned me in already, or someone had found what was in the garage. I gripped the doorframe to steady myself. Questions about what? May I come in? Detective Santos had kind eyes but a serious face, the kind of face that had seen too much darkness. I let her in because refusing would look suspicious. She sat on my couch and pulled out a notebook. I'm investigating a missing person case, a young woman named Jennifer Martinez. She was last seen in this neighborhood about 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. Right around the time I'd found Mark in the garage, Detective Santos showed me a photo on her phone. The woman was pretty, maybe 25, with long dark hair and a bright smile. Around her neck was a distinctive necklace, a silver heart with a small ruby in the center. My stomach dropped. I'd seen that necklace before, just a glimpse of it, but I was sure. It had been visible through a small tear in the black plastic. Have you seen this woman? Detective Santos asked, watching my face carefully. No, I don't think so. The lie tasted like acid. She worked at Hartman Financial. Does that ring any bells? Hartman Financial. That was where Mark worked. My brother-in-law works there, I heard myself say. Mark Chen. Detective Santos wrote something down. Have you noticed anything unusual in the neighborhood lately? Any strange cars? Anyone acting suspicious? Yes. My brother-in-law was burying something in our garage at 1 a.m, something that smelled like death, something that was wrapped in plastic and had a silver heart necklace. But Mark had those photos. If I talked, we'd both go down, and Emily would hate me forever. No, I whispered. Nothing unusual. Detective Santos looked at me for a long moment. She had the eyes of someone who knew I was lying. Ms. Bennett, I'm going to leave you my card. Sometimes people remember things later. Sometimes people see things but don't realize what they saw until someone asks. If anything comes to mind, anything at all, please call me. She placed her card on my coffee table. It sat there like an accusation. Jennifer's family is desperate for answers. Her mother calls me every day. Detective Santos stood up to leave. You seem like a good person, Ms. Bennett. So I'll tell you something. Guilty silence hurts just as much as guilty actions. Sometimes it hurts even more, because you had a choice. After she left, I picked up the card with trembling fingers. Detective Maria Santos, Homicide Division. I'd been so stupid. This wasn't about money or drugs. Mark had killed that woman, and I'd helped him cover it up. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. When I came back, the card was still there on my table. Next to it was my phone. I could call her right now. I could tell her everything. But then I thought about those photos Mark had. Photos that would make me look like an accomplice. Photos that would destroy any trust Emily had left in me. I put the card in my drawer and tried to forget Detective Santos's words. But they echoed in my head all night. Guilty silence hurts just as much as guilty actions. She was right, and I was drowning in it. Chapter 6. Emily's horrible accusation. Friday morning, everything exploded. I was getting ready for work when my apartment door burst open. I hadn't even heard footsteps on the stairs. Emily stood there, her face twisted with rage and tears. You lying, backstabbing! She didn't finish. She just ran at me and slapped me hard across the face. The shock of it made me stumble backward. Emily, what? Don't you dare act innocent! She shoved her phone in my face. On the screen were photos of Mark and me, but they weren't the ones from the garage. These showed us in different places. At a restaurant, in a car together. His hand on my shoulder, my head turned toward him laughing. All of them fake, all of them expertly edited. I don't understand, I said, touching my burning cheek. You've been sleeping with my husband, Emily screamed. How long, Rachel? How long have you been lying to my face? That's not real. Emily, those photos aren't. Then explain these? She swiped to text messages. They were supposed to be between Mark and me. Intimate messages, plans to meet, words of love, all completely fabricated. I never sent those. Emily, you have to believe me. Mark made those up. He's setting me up because I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. Oh, so now you're going to blame him? Make up some story to cover your affair? Emily's voice broke. You're my sister, my only sister, and you destroyed my marriage. You destroyed my life. Please, just listen. I'm done listening to your lies. Emily grabbed a picture frame off my shelf, a photo of the two of us as kids, and threw it against the wall. Glass shattered everywhere. You're dead to me, Rachel. Dead. I never want to see you again. Emily, please! But she was already gone, thundering down the stairs. I heard her car start and speed away. I stood in my apartment surrounded by broken glass, my face throbbing, my sister's words echoing. "You're dead to me." I called her phone. Voicemail. I texted her. No response. I drove to the house, but she wouldn't answer the door. Through the window, I could see Mark holding her while she cried. He looked at me over her shoulder and smiled. He'd done this. He'd planned it perfectly. He'd turned my own sister into his weapon against me. Now Emily would never believe anything I said about him. If I tried to tell her about the garage, she'd think it was just another lie to cover up my affair. I drove back to my apartment in a daze. For the first time, I realized I wasn't just protecting Mark's secret anymore. I was completely alone. My sister hated me. Mark had me trapped with those photos. And somewhere out there, a woman named Jennifer Martinez was missing, probably dead. And I was the only one who knew the truth. I pulled out Detective Santos's card and stared at it for hours. But every time I reached for my phone, I saw those fake photos Mark had created. If I went to the police, he'd make sure everyone thought I was involved. He'd destroy what little I had left. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't let Mark win. I couldn't let him use me as his shield while a killer walked free. I didn't know how yet, but I was going to find the truth, and I was going to make sure everyone knew what Mark really was. Even if it meant losing everything, digging up the truth. Saturday night, I waited until after midnight. Mark's car was gone. I'd seen him leave an hour ago. Emily's bedroom light had been off for hours. The neighborhood was silent and dark. It was now or never. I crept down to the garage, my phone flashlight in one hand and a shovel in the other. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. This was insane. This was dangerous. But I had to know what Mark had buried. I had to find proof. The garage was cold and dark. I locked the door behind me and went to the far corner where I'd seen Mark digging. Boxes were stacked there now, making it look completely normal. I moved them quietly, my hands shaking. Beneath them, the concrete looked smooth and undisturbed, but I knew better. I grabbed the shovel and drove it into the ground. It took me 20 minutes to break through the thin layer of new concrete Mark had poured. Beneath it was dirt, loose, recently moved dirt. I dug faster now, piling the dirt beside me. Sweat dripped down my face even though it was cold. The shovel hit something solid. I dropped to my knees and used my hands, pulling away dirt until I felt metal. A box. Mark had buried a metal box. I lifted it out. It was heavy, but not as heavy as a body would be. Relief and confusion washed over me. I broke the lock with the shovel and opened the lid. Inside was money. Stacks and stacks of cash wrapped in plastic bags. Thousands of dollars. Maybe more. Beneath the money were passports, 3 of them, all with Mark's photo, but different names. There were documents too. Printed emails, spreadsheets. I pulled them out and read by my phone light. Embezzlement. Mark had been stealing from Hartman Financial for years. The emails showed him moving money through fake accounts. The spreadsheets showed amounts, over $200,000 total. And there, near the bottom of the box, was an ID card. Jennifer Martinez, the missing woman. Her ID card was splattered with something dark. Blood, maybe. My hand started shaking so badly I almost dropped it. There were other things too. A woman's watch, broken, a phone, smashed to pieces, and that silver heart necklace with the ruby. Jennifer had found out about the embezzlement. These papers proved it. She'd confronted Mark, and I heard footsteps on the stairs outside. Heavy, deliberate. I froze, my heart hammering. The garage door handle turned. I'd locked it, but I heard keys jingling. Mark had a key, of course he did. I looked around frantically. There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. I grabbed the box and stood up, holding the evidence against my chest. The door opened. Mark stood there in the doorway, backlit by the outside light. In his hand was a tire iron. "I knew you'd do this," he said calmly, too calmly. "I knew you couldn't just leave it alone." "You killed her." My voice was surprisingly steady. "You killed Jennifer Martinez. She was going to ruin everything. Report me to the FBI. I had no choice." Mark stepped into the garage, closing the door behind him. "Just like I have no choice now." "The police know about Jennifer. They're looking for her." I backed up, but there was nowhere to go. The garage wall was right behind me. "And they'll find her eventually, but they'll think you killed her." Mark held up his phone, showing me those photos again, the ones where I looked like I was helping him. "Poor Rachel," so jealous of her sister's perfect marriage. She killed Mark's coworker who was trying to warn Emily. She buried the evidence. And when Mark found out, she killed him too before running away with the money. That's insane. No one will believe that. Won't they? You're already acting crazy. Emily will testify to that. You've been obsessed with me, sleeping with me, stalking me. I have proof. Mark raised the tire iron. Sorry, Rachel, but you should have kept your promise. He lunged at me, but I'd spent 5 years working with frightened, aggressive animals. I knew how to read body language. I knew when something was about to attack. I threw the metal box at him. It hit his chest and he stumbled. I dove to the side as the tire iron came down, missing my head by inches. It slammed into the wall with a loud crack. Help! I screamed as loud as I could. Someone help me! Mark recovered fast. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in like claws. We fought, crashing into boxes and tools. I grabbed a wrench from the workbench and swung it, catching him in the shoulder. He howled and threw me against the car. My back hit hard enough to knock the air from my lungs. You stupid! Mark raised the tire iron again. Police, don't move. The garage door burst open. Light flooded in. Detective Santos stood there with 2 uniformed officers, their guns drawn. Drop the weapon. Now! Mark froze, the tire iron still raised above his head. For a moment, I thought he might actually try to hit me anyway. But then the officers rushed forward, pulling him away from me and forcing him to the ground. I collapsed against the car, gasping for air. Detective Santos crouched beside me. Are you all right? I nodded, unable to speak. Behind me, Mark was being handcuffed. He was screaming about how I'd helped him, how I was guilty too, how he had proof. We know, Detective Santos said quietly. We've been watching him for days, and we've been watching you too, Ms. Bennett. Your neighbor called in a noise complaint. Lucky timing. She helped me stand up and led me outside. Police cars filled the driveway now, their lights flashing red and blue. And there on the front porch stood Emily, wrapped in a blanket, staring at me with wide, confused eyes. Our eyes met, and I saw everything there. Shock, betrayal, and the beginning of understanding, the night everything exploded. The police station was cold and smelled like bad coffee. I sat in an interview room with Detective Santos, wrapped in a blanket someone had given me. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Start from the beginning, she said gently. Tell me everything. So I did. I told her about finding Mark in the garage 2 weeks ago, about the black plastic bundle and the smell, about his threats and the fake photos, about Emily's accusations and how Mark had turned my own sister against me. I told her everything, and the relief of finally speaking the truth was overwhelming. Why didn't you come to me earlier? Detective Santos asked. When I gave you my card? He had photos, fake ones that made it look like I'd helped him. I thought if I told you, I'd go to jail, and my sister already hated me. I thought I'd lose everything. Tears ran down my face. I made the wrong choice. I know that now. Detective Santos slid a tissue box across the table. You're not the first person Mark Chen has manipulated. We've been investigating him for months. Jennifer Martinez's family reported her missing, and her phone records showed her last call was to Mark. But we didn't have enough evidence to arrest him until tonight. What happens now? Now we process the crime scene. The evidence you uncovered, the money, the documents, Jennifer's ID, that's enough to charge him with embezzlement and murder. The medical examiner is searching the property for remains. If she's there, we'll find her. I closed my eyes. Poor Jennifer. She'd tried to do the right thing, and it had cost her everything. What about me? Am I going to be charged? Detective Santos was quiet for a moment. You withheld evidence in a murder investigation. That's obstruction of justice, and it's serious, but you eventually came forward, sort of, and you're cooperating now. I'll recommend leniency, but Rachel, you need to understand. Your silence gave Mark 2 more weeks of freedom. 2 weeks where he could have hurt someone else. 2 weeks where Jennifer's family suffered not knowing. The guilt crashed over me like a wave. She was right. My fear had protected a killer. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry. Tell that to Jennifer's mother when you testify. They let me go home at dawn. Emily was waiting in the parking lot, leaning against her car. Her eyes were red from crying, and she looked exhausted. I heard everything, she said. The police told me. About the embezzlement, about Jennifer, about the fake photos. Her voice cracked. Why didn't you tell me? When you found him in the garage, why didn't you come to me? He threatened me. He said if I told you, it would destroy you. I thought I was protecting you. Protecting me? Emily's laugh was bitter. Rachel, I'm not a child. I'm your sister. We're supposed to protect each other by telling the truth, not by keeping secrets. I know that now. I stepped closer. I'm so sorry for all of it, for lying to you, for letting you think I'd betrayed you, for not trusting you enough to handle the truth. Emily wiped her eyes. I was married to a murderer. I slept next to him every night. I was planning our anniversary trip while he was hiding a dead woman's ID in our garage. She looked at me, her face broken. How did I not see it? How did I not know? Because he was good at hiding it. He fooled all of us. We stood there in the parking lot as the sun came up, two sisters who'd been torn apart by lies. Finally, Emily opened her arms, and I fell into them. We cried together, holding on tight. I need time, Emily said when we finally pulled apart. I need time to process all of this, what Mark did, what you did, all of it. I understand. But Rachel, you're still my sister. Nothing changes that. Those words meant everything. Facing the damage I caused 3 months later, I sat in a courtroom wearing my only nice dress. Mark's trial had taken weeks, and today was the verdict. The courtroom was packed with reporters, Jennifer's family, and people from Hartman Financial who'd lost their retirement savings to Mark's schemes. Detective Santos had been right about the evidence. Using ground-penetrating radar, they'd found Jennifer's body buried in the woods behind our property. Mark had killed her in the garage that night, the night before I found him, and then moved her body. The black plastic bundle I'd seen was just the metal box with the evidence. The medical examiner said Jennifer had died from blunt force trauma. She'd confronted Mark about the embezzlement, and he'd hit her with that same tire iron he'd tried to use on me. Then he'd stolen her ID and personal items to make it look like she'd run away. I'd had to testify. Facing Jennifer's mother across that courtroom was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I told them about finding Mark in the garage, about keeping his secret, about letting 2 weeks pass before the truth came out. Jennifer's mother had stared at me with empty eyes. After my testimony, she'd stood up and said, "My daughter died alone and scared because she tried to do the right thing. And you let her killer go free for 2 weeks because you were afraid. I hope you can live with that." I couldn't, but I had to try. The prosecutor had been blunt with me. Your initial silence complicated this case. Mark had time to create more fake evidence. He had time to prepare his defense. Because of you, this trial is harder than it needed to be. I'd accepted a plea deal for obstruction of justice, 2 years probation, and 300 hours of community service. No jail time, but a criminal record that would follow me forever. I'd lost my job at the veterinary clinic. Dr. Patterson had said he couldn't employ someone who'd withheld evidence in a murder case, even if I'd eventually told the truth. Now, as I sat in that courtroom, the jury filed back in. I held my breath. On the count of first-degree murder, we find the defendant guilty. The courtroom erupted. Jennifer's mother collapsed into her husband's arms, sobbing. Reporters rushed out to file their stories. Mark's lawyer stood up to object, but the judge silenced him with a raised hand. On the count of embezzlement, we find the defendant guilty. On all remaining counts, guilty. Mark didn't react. He just sat there, staring straight ahead like none of this was real. Then slowly, he turned and looked directly at me. His eyes were cold and empty. He mouthed 2 words, "Your fault." Maybe he was right. Maybe if I'd spoken up that first night, Jennifer's family would have had closure sooner. Maybe the trial would have been easier. Maybe a lot of things would have been different. But I'd made my choice, and now I had to live with it. After the verdict, Detective Santos found me in the hallway. The judge will sentence him next month. With the evidence we have, he's looking at life without parole. Good, I said quietly. Oh, Basul, how are you holding up? I'm managing. It was a lie. I wasn't managing at all. I'd moved out of the apartment above the garage. I couldn't stay there anymore. Emily had put the house up for sale. She couldn't live there either, knowing what had happened in that garage. We were both trying to rebuild our lives from the ashes Mark had left behind. Rachel, I meant what I said before. Your silence hurt this case, but you eventually did the right thing. That counts for something. Does it? Jennifer is still dead. Her family still lost her, and I could have prevented weeks of their suffering. Detective Santos put a hand on my shoulder. You can't change the past, but you can learn from it. Use your community service to help people. Make something good come from this mess. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Emily was waiting for me outside the courthouse. She'd attended every day of the trial, sitting on the opposite side of the room from Mark's parents. They'd tried to claim their son was innocent, that I'd somehow framed him. No one believed them. "It's over," Emily said as we walked to her car. "Not really. The sentencing is next month, and I still have my probation." "I met with Mark. He can't hurt us anymore." Emily unlocked the car, and we got in. "I've been thinking about what you said, about how you kept quiet to protect me." "Em, we don't have to talk about this." "Yes, we do." She turned to face me. "You were wrong to lie to me. You were wrong to keep that secret. But I understand why you did it. And I forgive you." Tears filled my eyes. "I don't deserve that." "Maybe not, but I'm your sister, and I love you. We've both been through hell because of Mark. We either heal together, or we stay broken forever. I choose healing." I reached over and squeezed her hand. "Me too." We drove to Jennifer's parents' house. I'd asked Emily to come with me, and she'd agreed. This was something I needed to do, even though every part of me was terrified. Mrs. Martinez answered the door. Her face was still swollen from crying at the courthouse. When she saw me, her expression hardened. "What do you want?" I wanted to say I'm sorry. I know it doesn't change anything. I know it doesn't bring Jennifer back, but I need you to know that I think about her every day. I think about my choice to stay silent and how it hurt you and your family. I'm so, so sorry. Mrs. Martinez stared at me for a long moment. Then she said, "My daughter was 25 years old. She was going to get married next year. She wanted to be a teacher. She had her whole life ahead of her." "I know." "Do you? Do you really understand what your silence cost us? We spent 2 weeks not knowing if she was alive or dead. 2 weeks hoping she'd call. 2 weeks of hell." "I understand, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to make up for what I did." "You can't make it up. You can't bring her back." Mrs. Martinez's voice broke. "But maybe you can make sure other people don't make your mistake. Maybe you can teach people that silence isn't protection. It's just cowardice dressed up as love." Her words hit me like a physical blow. "You're right. That's exactly what it was." Mrs. Martinez nodded once, then closed the door. Emily and I stood there on the porch, and I felt the weight of everything I'd done crushing down on me. "Come on," Emily said gently. "Let's go home." But I didn't have a home anymore, and I wasn't sure I deserved one. The sister I lost, the truth I found 6 months after the trial. Mark was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. I watched it happen on the news from my new studio apartment across town. I couldn't afford to go to the sentencing. I was working 2 jobs now to pay my bills and court fees. During the day, I stocked shelves at a grocery store. At night, I cleaned office buildings. It wasn't the life I'd imagined, but it was the life I'd earned. My community service hours were spent at a domestic violence shelter. I answered phones and helped women who were trying to escape dangerous situations. Every time someone called, scared to leave because they thought it would make things worse, I understood. I knew what it felt like to choose silence over truth. Sometimes the scariest thing is the right thing, I told them. I learned that the hard way. Emily and I met for coffee every Sunday. We were rebuilding our relationship slowly, brick by brick. She'd started therapy to deal with the trauma of being married to a murderer. I'd started therapy to deal with my guilt. "My therapist says I need to forgive myself," I told her one Sunday morning. "But I don't know how. Every time I close my eyes, I see Jennifer's mother's face. I hear her telling me that my silence killed her daughter." "Your silence didn't kill her. Mark killed her." Emily stirred sugar into her coffee. "You made a terrible mistake, Rachel. But you're not a murderer. You're just someone who was scared and made the wrong choice. That choice cost Jennifer's family 2 weeks of hope. It cost them closure. It cost—" "Stop!" Emily reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "You can't spend the rest of your life punishing yourself. Mark already took enough from both of us. Don't let him take your future too." But it was hard. Every day was hard. One afternoon, I was working at the grocery store when Detective Santos walked in. She'd retired from the police force and was working as a private investigator now. She smiled when she saw me. "How are you doing, Rachel?" "I'm okay, getting by." I finished scanning her items. "What brings you here?" "Just shopping, but I'm glad I ran into you. I wanted you to know that the Martinez family started a foundation in Jennifer's name. It helps families of missing persons. They asked me to tell you that they'd like you to speak at their first fundraiser. I almost dropped the eggs I was holding. They want me to speak after everything I did. They want you to share your story, to tell people what happens when we choose silence over truth, to maybe prevent someone else from making your mistake. Detective Santos paid for her groceries. Think about it. You can't change what happened, Rachel, but you can help make sure it doesn't happen again. After she left, I thought about it all day. Could I really stand in front of people and admit what I'd done? Could I face Jennifer's family and tell the world about my cowardice? That night, I talked to my therapist about it. She said, "Guilt can either destroy us or transform us. Which one you choose is up to you." I chose transformation. 2 months later, I stood at a podium in front of 200 people at the Jennifer Martinez Memorial Foundation fundraiser. Her parents sat in the front row, and Emily sat beside them. I gripped the sides of the podium and took a deep breath. My name is Rachel Bennett, and I need to tell you about the worst mistake of my life. I told them everything, about finding Mark in the garage, about choosing to stay silent, about the 2 weeks I let pass while Jennifer's family suffered, about how my fear of losing my sister had actually driven us apart, about how protecting family should never mean protecting their crimes. I thought silence was loyalty, I said, my voice shaking. I thought keeping Mark's secret was the same as keeping my family safe. But I was wrong. Silence isn't loyalty, it's just cowardice dressed up as love. When I finished speaking, the room was quiet. Then Mrs. Martinez stood up. She walked to the podium, and I thought she might yell at me or tell me to leave. Instead, she hugged me. "Thank you for telling the truth," she whispered. Finally. I broke down crying in her arms. This woman who I'd hurt so badly was showing me grace I didn't deserve. It was the moment everything changed. After the fundraiser, the foundation asked me to become a regular speaker. I traveled to schools and community centers telling my story, teaching people that secrets protect criminals, not families. That real love means having the courage to tell hard truths. Emily came to one of my talks. Afterwards, she said, "I'm proud of you. You took something terrible and turned it into something good." I'm trying. That's all I can do. That's all any of us can do. A year after Mark's sentencing, I got accepted into a veterinary technician program at a community college. Dr. Patterson had written me a letter of recommendation saying that everyone deserved a second chance if they were truly trying to change. I still think about Jennifer Martinez every day. I think about the choice I made and the consequences it had. I think about her mother's face and those 2 weeks of hell I could have prevented. But I also think about the lives I might have saved by sharing my story. The women at the shelter who found the courage to leave. The teenagers who learned to report abuse instead of hiding it. The families who understood that protecting each other means protecting them from harm, not from consequences. Every night before I sleep, I look at a photo I keep on my nightstand. It's of Emily and me at the foundation's second annual fundraiser. We're both smiling, our arms around each other. We look like sisters again, because we are. We lost time to Mark's lies and my cowardice, but we found each other again in the truth. I learned the hardest way possible that silence isn't golden. Sometimes it's just dark and heavy and suffocating. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is open your mouth and tell the truth, no matter how much it costs you. Jennifer Martinez paid the ultimate price for trying to do the right thing. I couldn't save her, but I can honor her memory by making sure her story and mine helps others find the courage to speak up. That's not redemption. I'm not sure I'll ever be redeemed, but it's a start, and sometimes a start is all we get. Every day, I work at the clinic with animals who trust me to keep them safe. Every week, I speak to groups about the danger of silence. Every month, I put flowers on Jennifer's grave and tell her I'm sorry. And every Sunday, I have coffee with my sister, and we talk about healing, about forgiveness, about the family we're rebuilding from the broken pieces Mark left behind. I can't change what I did. I can't bring Jennifer back. I can't give her family those 2 weeks of suffering I caused. But I can make sure her death wasn't meaningless. I can make sure other people learn from my mistake. That's my life now. Not the one I planned, but maybe the one I needed, the one that taught me that protecting family never means protecting their secrets. Real love is brave enough to tell the truth, even when the truth is ugly. Especially when the truth is ugly. Because in the end, silence didn't protect anyone. It just gave evil more time to grow. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure other people don't learn that lesson the way I did, by losing someone who could have been saved.